Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. If you've watched the Tennessee Informer very long, you've heard me complain about the rhinos, reptiles, and reprobates in our Republican supermajority that consistently fail to uphold their oath to the state and U.S. Constitution, to defend our rights, and promote and pass common sense legislation that reflects the traditional values of most Republican voters in our state. There are no shortage of culls and yes men and women in our legislature that roll over like a trained puppy in deference to what the governor or so-called leadership wants, willingly abandoning their constituents in the process. Fortunately, there are some exceptions to that rule, and we have one of those exceptions with us tonight. Representative Jody Barrett from District 69 joins us to talk about his efforts in the state legislature and the games played by the so-called leadership and governor that are detrimental and insulting not only to his constituents, but the citizens of Tennessee. And we'll also discuss his candidacy for the Tennessee 7th District congressional seat recently abandoned by Mark Green. Before we do our Informer report, I want to give a thank you to Mayor Mark Potts of Jefferson County. And this is a response to a thank you letter he sent to Tennessee Informer. And of course, David Seal was involved with this. David was on our show back during the last session to talk about a bill having to do with eminent domain. Basically, they were trying to take your property under eminent domain if it met their definition of blighted. And so David came on the show. They felt that was helpful, as well as a lot of other people, okay? It was not just that he showed up here and everything fell in line. But we were one of the people that received a letter, as did several others. But I think it's good of the mayor to do that, and we really appreciate the recognition. Now it's time for the Informer Report. Right, okay, we're having a little bit of technical issues here. Okay, Trump and Putin met in Alaska on Friday. Afterward, Trump seemed pretty optimistic, even though he gave no details. Now, we know they met again today. He met today with Zelensky and the leaders of the European Union, all the major leaders of the European countries that are concerned about the situation over there. So a few things that we do know. Trump has already said, Zelensky is not really dealing from a strong position. So he's going to have to give up some territory. Territory probably was lost back in 2014, Crimea. That happened under the Obama administration. And it's ridiculous to think that he's going to get that back. He may have to cede some other territory. Now, all these things, of course, are going to be left up to Zelensky and the Ukrainians. It's ultimately their decision to make whether or not they do this. And, of course, Zelensky and the European Union and other countries, the countries that make up the European Union, they're concerned about, they want some sort of security program plan for Ukraine and, of course, for Europe. And so hopefully within the next week, they will meet and come up with a plan to end all this. A couple of things here. Number one, this is still not our fight, okay? Hopefully, even if it's a security force, I hope that there's no American troops involved, and I hope the spending on it from the U.S. is minimal, if any. We've already gave them way, way too much money. And as far as Europe helping, they have stepped up from the past of what they've done in terms of providing for their own defense. But let's face it, they're way behind the power curve, and they can barely keep their own countries under control. They've let so many Islamic migrants come over there, illegal aliens and all. They're about to lose their country. I mean, they are in a mess. I think they would have a civil war if they were to get involved in a wider war somewhere else. I don't think they could keep their country in line. So I hope that this ends soon. But I hope that we don't get stuck with any of the actual security responsibilities, and we need to stop paying out anything, okay? Ukraine's not even an ally or a member of NATO. Now, I can only speak for myself. I only care about America, okay? I really only care about America. I am fresh out of dams to give for any other country than the U.S. Now, that includes the non-country terror haven hellhole of Gaza. The more Hamas that Israel eliminates, the better. Yes, I understand there's some innocent people there, but there were a lot of innocent people killed on 9/11, and Gaza and the entire Muslim world celebrated. Once again, I'm in short supply of dams to give for anywhere but the U.S. Speaking of Hamas, at one time our FBI believed that CAIR, that's the Council on Islamic-American Relations, was Hamas. And Hamas still is listed as a designated terror entity. Well, maybe somebody finally reminded the federal government of that, because now the Trump administration is in the process of designating CAIR, and more importantly, the Muslim Brotherhood, the granddaddy of most Islamic terrorist organizations worldwide, as foreign terrorist organizations. Way overdue, but I hope that means that they are also going to take a harder look at Qatar, a country the administration recently bragged about making a deal with that was going to invest billions of dollars in America. Qatar is and has been a very actor, very much like Iran when it comes to financing terror. There's also a Tennessee link to Qatar we can talk about sometime. Just go to dailyrollcall.com and look up the article. It's Haggerty / Samara Ali / her husband. I don't recall the year on this. And yes, Haggerty is a reference to now Senator Haggerty. Okay. Speaking of Tennessee and the cult from hell, also known as Islam, a woman was raped numerous times in front of a church in Nashville last week, right off Nolensville Pike, by a follower of the raping, murdering pedophile Muhammad. The perp's name is, Muhammad. The victim was unconscious and later died. She had no identification on her. An autopsy is or has been conducted. See the full story in Bare Naked Islam. I don't know why we haven't heard more about this story from the local press. I think that deporting illegal alien Muslims should be one of our highest priorities. Europe has stupidly allowed Muslims to take over, and now they're paying the price. We need to learn from them what not to do. And that's the Informer Report for tonight. Now to our guest, State Rep, and now candidate for the 7th District House seat, Jody Barrett. Jody was one of 4 Republican legislators that voted to stop Bill Lee's red flag special session before it started, rightfully opposed the unconstitutional voucher plan, and he supported reining in the governor's emergency powers, as well as many other battles he's fought in Nashville. Jody, welcome to the show.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I appreciate you coming on. Glad to have you. I know you're busy. You're actually at a campaign event right now. People can learn more about you, of course, at jodybarrettfortennessee.com. And I want to get right into this. I want to talk about your time in the legislature, then we'll get to the 7th District race. Now,
Sure.
You're halfway through your second term, and you've received high marks from certain conservative organizations based on your voting record. The Tennessee Report Card, which is put out by Tennessee Stands, has you at a perfect 100 for 2025. And I think the other organization, and I don't have the slide for that, I think that was the John Birch Society, correct?
That's correct. The John Birch Society Freedom Index.
Okay, and that is one of the hardest ones. That's one of the best ones out there, because they look, they're more constitutionally minded. So to get 100 on that, that's impressive. And of course, Tennessee Stands is, they're a very conservative organization. And I think one of the important things on this, at least with Tennessee Stands, I don't know so much about the JBS, although I should, is that they don't just look at how you voted when it came up to the floor. They look at your committee votes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we know that's where legislation is, it's make or break there.
Yeah, I think it's key when you look at that slide and you see the 100 score, but below that, the A+ leadership grade, which, I think is kind of humorous whenever they are off to the right there, the A+. I think it's humorous because when my opponents or detractors say, well, he's ineffective and he doesn't get anything done because his leadership's mad at him and they're all blocking him from getting his bills. Well, you don't get an A+ leadership grade by just rolling over and not doing anything. So, folks that are watching what's going on in committee and what's being said on the floor, how these bills are being contested, and the comments that we're rolling out there for people to look at and think about, I think that's a good sign that we're still being effective. We're changing the language of some of our colleagues up there on the House.
Absolutely. And having this from an organization like Tennessee Stands or JBS means a whole lot more than I would be concerned if you had an A+ rating from Sexton. I'll just tell you right now. Matter of fact, you probably wouldn't be on the show right now if you had an A+ rating from Sexton. Just bottom line.
Well, it's certainly two different approaches to being a legislator. That's for sure.
Okay. Was there, now, I know that we'll talk about some of their tricks here in a second. I know they blocked most of your legislation this year. They just made sure. And let's talk a little bit about that. How they go about that when they decided, okay, he's not playing ball our way, so we're going to make sure he doesn't get anything through. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So I tell people it's kind of like when a baseball manager goes out to argue balls and strikes. He can usually get away with saying the first ugly thing to the umpire, maybe get two things out. But when you say the third thing, he throws you out of the game. And so I think that's where I got this year. It wasn't just the school voucher vote, but that was the final straw, I think, that kind of turned everybody and got me tossed out of the game. And essentially what they did, because I've got such good legislation, you can go on capital.tn.gov and see the bills that I have that are still pending. They're not dead. They haven't killed them. They just play games with the scheduling whenever you try to put something on notice in committee. And you're maybe number 7 or 8 on the calendar, and the committee chairman gets to number 6 and he decides, well, we're going to skip on down to item 12 or 14 and deal with this one now. Yeah. And so you just sit there and politely wait your turn and hope that they call your bill. And then what we ultimately realized is that they weren't going to let any of my bills come up. And like I said, they didn't want to kill them because they would have to have a bad vote then and have to go back and explain to their constituents why they were killing human trafficking bills and bills that roll back the governor's emergency powers and things like that. And so, once I realized that the game was afoot and what they were trying to do to me, I found another way to skin the cat. So I went and found some other friends to put their name on the bills as sponsors. Right. Took my name off and just try to do an end around that way. And so we got 3 probably of the most influential and important bills passed this year in the entire session, just by me being willing to take my name off of it and not get my picture in the paper and my name on the radio, so to speak.
What were those bills?
So the biggest one I think that's gotten the most publicity is the human trafficking bill, or human smuggling. We have human trafficking already on the books in Tennessee, but we did not have a law that made it a felony to smuggle human beings, which is exactly what the cartels and all of these NGOs are doing whenever they're trying to hide people from ICE and from federal law enforcement agencies. They'll get tipped off that ICE is coming to Memphis and going to be in a certain neighborhood, so they'll load them all up on a bus and take them over to Chattanooga for a 3-day weekend to hide them out. And so the Center for Security Policy came to me back in January with a bill draft that they wanted to run. We worked for about 2 months with TBI and Homeland Security and Department of Safety to get that language drafted up and amended. Probably did 10 or 11 different amendments on it till we got it right and everybody was comfortable with it. And then when I put it on notice, I started getting games played with it. And somebody told a friend of mine that any bill with Jody Barrett's name on it is dead on arrival in committee. And we're going to make sure that guy doesn't have any success this year. And so I went ahead and found somebody else that would take it, and we got that passed. So this whole deal with the University of Belmont, hiding illegal immigrants in their dorms, they're violating that law, the portion of that law that makes it a misdemeanor to harbor illegal aliens. This statute is now going to allow us and our law enforcement to go after those folks that are basically acting on their own as sanctuary entities, sanctuary cities, sanctuary universities, that sort of thing. And so we're going to bring an end to that here in Tennessee.
Is that only a misdemeanor?
It's a misdemeanor for the harboring portion only. The smuggling portion is a Class D felony. But then if it's a 13 years or under person that you're smuggling, it goes to a Class A felony.
Okay, so it would be a felony to harbor as well then.
It all gets tied together. Essentially, you can't do one without the other.
Okay, okay. Now, so I know that I hear that ICE is active in Nashville and other places here in Tennessee, but is the state actively using this law? Are they just letting the feds do their thing?
Well, it just went into effect on July 1, and so I'm hopeful. We put some language in there that gives the AG's office a little bit of leverage of their own, so that we don't have to worry about this DA in Davidson County that's not doing anything.
Yeah,
Same thing that we're seeing in Shelby County, where you've got these Soros DAs that are just rolling over and not enforcing the law. So our AG's office, AG Skermetti's doing a fantastic job in a lot of different areas, and so we're giving him more tools every time we get an opportunity to do that through the law, so that he can go ahead and enforce it on his own.
And now, of course, you're not the only person, or you're certainly not the first person that they have done this to. They did it to Bruce Griffey when he was in office. They do it to other people. And here's the thing. I mean, let's think about that just a second, how arrogant that is. Okay, we're going to block good legislation. I would think in most cases, a lot of legislation, well, we agree with that, or they at least ran on those type of things. But we're
Sure.
going to block it because we're mad at so-and-so. And to me, that's giving, they're not just giving you the finger. They're giving your district a finger. They're giving everybody in Tennessee that wants that kind of legislation passed and that they should be passing, they're giving them the finger because they're mad at a legislator who would not kiss the ring.
Yeah, I think the most disappointing thing that I had to deal with this year in that regard is a bill dealing with the Duck River in Hickman County. I'm the only representative for the entire county of Hickman, and we had a bill trying to put the entire stretch of the Duck River in that county into a Class 2 scenic waterway. So essentially, it was a local bill. It had no impact on any other district or any other member of the legislature. And they put that bill on ice again, just to show me that they have all the control and I don't. So they were definitely sending messages this year, and I took it as well as I could and got done what I possibly could.
Yeah. Well, and kudos to you for being willing to give your bill to somebody else. I know there are some people that, okay, well, if they killed my bill, then oh well.
Right.
They're too proud to give it to somebody else and let somebody else get the credit for it. So that's, we definitely need more people who don't care as much about the credit as getting it done. So,
well, I think that's part of the deal too. When you're part of a supermajority like this, or really any caucus, being a team player is being willing to help other people out whenever you can. And usually that means that whenever you need some help, they'll turn around and give you a hand as well. So I appreciate the three guys that took some legislation for me and carried it across the finish line. It's like a lateral in the game. I'm getting ready to get tackled, so I just lateral it off to somebody else and let them run the rest of the way.
yeah. Who were those three?
So Chris Todd took over the human smuggling bill and ran that one in for me. Did a fantastic job with it. Rusty Grills took the bill that rolled back the governor's emergency powers. We were dealing with that during COVID, where he was trampling all over our constitutional rights, and so we passed a law this year that said that even under a declaration of emergency, the governor cannot violate your individual constitutional rights in Tennessee. Long since needed to be done. Took several years to finally get it done. And the irony in this is that the folks that brought that bill to me this year came to me and said, hey, we had some really good sponsors in the past and we weren't able to get it done. We think you're the guy this year. Little did they know that I was going to be the guy that was on the outs. So we were able to get it done. And then also I worked with one of my fellow candidates in this Tennessee 7 race, Gino Bolso. Yep. I had a bill that says that these crazy transgender guys can't go into women's bathrooms in public places and use the bathroom and harass our women and wives and children. And so we passed that bill as well. It was, again, another common sense law that everybody in my caucus was proud to vote for, but they were willing to throw it in the trash just because my name was on it.
That is, but that's like high school.
It is.
If
Very
not
much
junior
so.
high. Good
Yep.
Lord. Any other bills from this session? Because I want to talk a little bit about your bills from the first session before they decided to block everything. Anything else you want to say about the legislation for this year?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things that are still live out there. I tried last year to get this civil right of action where you can sue anybody that is violating the criminal obscenity statute in Tennessee. So if you are manufacturing, distributing, transporting, delivering, whatever, obscene materials in the state of Tennessee, there's a criminal statute for that. But there's not currently a provision that allows us as citizens to sue those people for damages. So you're reliant on a DA, a district attorney to investigate, and it's a higher standard of evidence in order to get a conviction. And so for whatever reason, I can't get my friends in the Senate to understand that this is needed to not only provide access to the courts for parents and children that are being exploited by these companies, but also to create a deterrent for them to stop doing business in our state. If we hit them a couple of times in their pocketbook, I promise you, they'll stop coming into Tennessee and doing this stuff, and we need to get rid of it. It needs to get out of our state. So that's a big one. And then I also have a bill that I have a caption bill. I've been sitting on it. I knew that last year was not going to be good for it, but I'm hopeful if I do come back next year, if I'm not in D.C., I've got a bill that's going to deal with abortion, that deals with personhood and, basically making abortion completely illegal. Right now, we're playing footsie with the American Medical Association and protecting the doctors and that sort of thing. We've got more abortions happening in Tennessee than they were before Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so that's going to be a big, heavy lift, even with the supermajority that we have. But somebody needs to take this mantle and shout it from the rooftops that there's more to be done here. And so I'm happy to do that.
Absolutely. And the Senate is, pick a topic. The Senate is a problem, definitely a problem.
They have been difficult to work with at times. That is true.
Yeah, that's the nice way of putting it.
That's the way I have to put it. Right.
I understand. You're running. I'm not. I got it. So let's go back to your first year, where you were able to get some things through your first year. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the very first bill that I passed was a medical freedom bill for homeschoolers. Most freshmen get some sort of administrative bill that's, moving a comma or changing a word in a sentence, but I didn't have that luxury. So I had a full debate on a bill that changed the law in Tennessee that required homeschool parents to submit their immunization records for their children to the director of schools for the county that they live in for no reason. And so we were able to get that overturned, even with some Republican pushback, and got that bill passed right off the bat. You remember that first session that we had. I tell people that we probably had a full 10 or 15-year career wrapped into one session that first year for those of us that came in together. We had the transgender surgery bill, moved from that straight into the drag queen story hour. I think the same protesters that were there in January just went home and changed into dresses and changed their wigs and came back in February. And then we went from there into a fight over the Tennessee's trigger ban on abortion, because immediately after Roe v. Wade was overturned, the American Medical Association and others started attacking that law, trying to weaken it and create pathways for doctors where they couldn't be sued. Then from there, we went into the lieutenant governor's issues on Instagram with teenage boys. And then we had the Covenant shooting, the protest, the expulsion, and then kind of ended that first year trying to do red flag laws with the governor. So that first session was wild. One of the things that I was able to get done, though, that I was very proud of, and it happened at the beginning of the second half of that session. This issue that we've got in America now, where these pink and purple haired fascists think that they can just walk into a bridge or an interstate ramp or a highway and just sit down and block traffic. And it was maddening watching this stuff going on. And so we drafted a bill. I got that put together in January of that second session and got with Senator Brent Taylor, and he agreed to sign on to it. We filed that bill on Wednesday, and on Friday, the pro-Palestine march on the bridge, on the I-40 bridge over the Mississippi River happened, and it was perfect timing for us. I mean, it justified everything that we were trying to do with that bill. So we got that done to where you can now sue those people too, and drag them into court. And if we can find out who's funding those protests, then we're going to drag them into court too. We're going to make it really expensive for these people to do these silly things in Tennessee.
Good, good. One question on vouchers. Now, like I said,
Yes, sir.
you voted against vouchers. I'm glad you did. I agree 100%. I think it's unconstitutional according to our state constitution, and I think we're seeing that it's not what they said it was going to be in terms of they're actually paying more to those families, I think it is, than what you're spending on the kids in public. At least that's a story.
Right.
But I'm just curious, what was the response in your district to you voting against vouchers? Because to listen to the establishment, everybody wants vouchers. And if you're
Right.
conservative, you got to support vouchers. Otherwise, you're a full-fledged supporter of the NEA and the TEA and any other A that supports this garbage.
Yeah, I was told that too, that this polls 80% among Republicans. They're all for school choice. Well, the problem is the voucher bill was not a school choice bill. It's a voucher bill. Nobody can point to any new choice that was created by this new law that did not exist prior. It doesn't create any new type of education platform or school or anything like that. What it does create is an inducement for parents to make a certain choice. It's taxpayer money that's being rolled out there to encourage parents to choose to send their kids to private school. And unfortunately, what we're going to find out eventually, of course, the Department of Education is not forthcoming with the information right now. But what we're going to find out eventually is what was originally predicted to be 65% of this money going to students that were already in private schools. That number is probably going to be more like 90%.
Wow.
And
So it's a subsidy.
It's all it is. It's a tuition reimbursement program. Which is fine if that's what you wanted to do, and we're trying to make it easier for on middle class families that are having a hard time to afford that tuition. Then just say that. Then that's what we're doing. But selling this as some sort of universal school choice plan that doesn't create any new options for people, and certainly not for folks in my district where we don't have a private school.
Yep.
So to answer your question, my district was adamantly opposed to this and remains adamantly opposed to this. And what I'm finding in this campaign in Tennessee 7 for Mark Green's congressional seat is the vast majority of this district, being rural, was adamantly opposed.
Absolutely.
Overwhelmingly opposed. And so I think I get a little bit of a chuckle when a couple of my opponents are running on the fact that they are pro school choice and they supported it. All these mailers are going out into my district and calling me Benedict Barrett, and I betrayed Trump, and I'm pro school teacher or teachers unions and all this stuff. It's just nonsense. Yeah. And the more that they attack me on it, the more popular I'm becoming in my district. So they're doing me a favor, and I'm happy for them to keep doing it.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And I never did buy because I'm in the 7th district, so it's mostly rural, other than, Nashville and some in Clarksville, but the bulk of the district is rural. And I'm like, okay, where are they going to send their kids to?
I mean, if I stood on the corner of downtown Dover and was handing out $500 gift certificates to Chick-fil-A, and you have to drive an hour and 15 minutes to get to the closest Chick-fil-A, what good am I doing you? I mean, it's more helpful and more valuable if I'm doing that in downtown Clarksville where there's several Chick-fil-A's to choose from, but it's not helping the folks out there in Dover and Stewart County. And that's exactly what this thing is doing. It's just a receipt or a voucher for you to take to whatever private school you want to use and get $7,200 of your money back.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I think more and more people are going to find that out. And I'll be honest with you, I think Ray Charles could have seen that this was not going to work the way they claimed. Anyway, so now
They're important, I suppose.
let's talk about your run for Congress. Your run. Okay, I do want to hold before we go. I do want to put this up. This is your website, and everybody can take a quick look at that. Jody Barrett for Congress. You can get a lot more information from there than what we're going to be able to we're going to be able to cover tonight. So it gives you more details, goes into more details about the his ratings from both JBS and the Tennessee Report, and anything you need to know, you'll find it there, or you'll see him at one of the multiple events he's going to be at over the next 2 months, and you can ask him. But anyhow, so let's get to the 7th district race. Now you've completed what, one full term, and you're halfway through your second term at the House?
Yes, sir. 3 years in.
Okay. And now you're running for the swamp.
The bigger swamp.
Yeah, correct. The bigger swamp, because nobody should kid themselves. Nashville is a swamp. The dollar amounts are smaller, and
That's right.
for the most part, it all comes with a Southern accent. But other than that, it's still a swamp. But now you're going to go to the big swamp, which is going to be harder, which we do need good people there. I just hate to lose good people at the state level, okay? I'll just say it that way. But you're going to go up there and try to make a difference in the 7th district, and appreciate that. I'm glad you're doing it. But why did you decide to leave the small swamp and go to the big swamp? Let's put it that way.
Well, it's a two-part answer. The first part is because I was being asked to do it. This is not something that I've had on my to-do list or bucket list. But when the rumor started swirling that Congressman Green was thinking about stepping down, I had several folks from within my district and also within the 7th district, congressional district, that reached out and said, hey, we think this is an opportunity for us to get a really strong conservative in this seat. Somebody from one of our counties that's maybe not in the money center or the population center, that has more of a background out here with the rural counties. And so they reached out to me and asked me if I would consider it. Now, when they first did that, this was before Congressman Green announced that he was going to resign. And so I told them no, because they're crazy. No congressman ever resigns in the middle of their 2-year term. That never happens. And so I said, just if anything changes and he actually does do it, then call me then. So 3 weeks later on the button, he resigned and they called me again. And so by that point, my wife and I had already been able to kind of chat about it for a few weeks. And so when it all kind of started unraveling and we saw what was going on, we just started praying about it and figuring out if this was right for us, right for she and I, right for our family, right for my business and my business partners. And, the answer that we both kept coming back to is that you were being prepared for this. So everything that I dealt with for the 3 years, what we just talked about, the difficulties, that first session and all the wildness and craziness that had happened, plus the fight with the governor and the red flag laws, and coming back and getting the anti-red flag law passed in Tennessee, and then dealing with the school vouchers and standing up for my people. Everything just indicated that, God's kind of been putting little obstacles and tests in my way to get me ready for this challenge. And so that's what I see it as. It's another challenge, another opportunity for me to do what I've done at the state level. And that's, stand up for my people and speak on their behalf. I think it's funny. One of the groups now is trying to label me a populist, as if that's a bad thing, because I actually listen to my voters and try to do what they want me to do. That's the role, I think, of a representative, is to represent the voice of the people that elected you. I don't think that you are electing someone and sending them up to DC to do whatever they think is best. Certainly there are circumstances where you're going to have to make that judgment call, but for the most part, we want somebody to go up there and say what we would say and do what we would do and vote the way we would vote if we were in the chair. You see some of these polling datas or polling organizations that say, well, this person's in a R plus 22 district, but they only vote conservative 56% of the time. When you have something like that going on, then there's a disconnect between that representative and the people they represent. I try to make sure that I'm speaking the way that my people would have me speak and the way that they would do it if they were up there.
Let me get some clarification on that because, and I hear that response a lot. But your state district, of course, is a lot smaller than the 7th district. So you're going to have a lot, and I'm just talking among Republicans, you're going to have a lot of different ideas about things as far as,
Sure.
What they want. So, but really, would you not agree that one of your main responsibilities up there is to uphold the Constitution? I mean, I would hope that would be one of your guiding principles. For any, I would think any issue would be okay if it's not a constitutional conflict, then I would think that would be where, the people, what the people want.
No, it's a step 1, step 2, step 3 analysis, right? Step 1, is this a constitutional thing for us to be doing? If you can't get past that first step, then it's full stop. Do not go to step 2. And you're right. The district in Dixon, Hickman, and Lewis County that I represent now, with 72,000 people roughly, is not nearly as diverse as the congressional 7th with 700,000 people. It includes Williamson County, which is the wealthiest county in the state, the 11th wealthiest county in the country. And then you also have Wayne and Perry County and parts of Benton and Decatur County, which are some of the more rural and poorer parts of the state. And so there's certainly going to be a wide disparity of opinion and influence. And I think when you're looking at the different issues that we're going to be facing, a lot of it's going to be seen differently in parts of the district than they will in others. That's part of why I ended up voting against the school vouchers, is because my district just saw it differently than some of the other parts of the state. And it will be different and much more difficult to discern what that clear will is. And then that's where you have to make the judgment call. When you get in a situation where, it's a 50-50 vote or something along those lines, and there's not a clear line from the district that's telling you that what they want you to do or what you need to do, then that's when you have to trust that who you've sent up there is going to use the common sense and the sense that the good Lord gave him to, be able to boil it down and figure out what the best thing is for the state.
Yeah. And in D.C., I mean, we got a huge debt and deficit issue right now, and we didn't get that way overnight.
No, sir.
It's just gotten worse and worse, though. We're not improving it. We're getting worse. Even with the additional money we're taking in tariffs, it's insane. I feel pretty confident in saying 95% of our debt is for things that are not even remotely constitutional. So
I think we saw a lot of that with the USAID stuff, with Doge and the ways that we're just blowing money left and right. So, yeah, I mean, that was just a little peek under the curtain of the ways that our government has been failing us. And you're right, it didn't happen overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight either.
Right. And so I'm hoping that that's something that will be your focus, as well as, the Constitution. And, like I say, it's hard to do. We can't go cold turkey on these things. I got that. But there has to be, whether it's, okay, we're going to reduce by X percentage, this year, whatever unconstitutional funding source we're talking about, or thing that gets funded. And the other thing is returning power to the states. The federal government's not supposed to have all this power. Article 1, Section 8 lays out what they're supposed to have. Everything else is supposed to be at the state. So those are things that need to be.
The 10th Amendment is just as important as the rest of them.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping that you'll be an exception to that rule, because most of those people up there, if they know anything about the Constitution or any concept of limited government, they don't care.
No, you're right. And it's just like Representative Thomas Massey. We're seeing him just be excoriated right now for speaking up about these things. And that's where this experience that I've had at the state level of speaking up on behalf and standing firm on behalf of my district and the folks that I represent. I've been in that fight already. I think all the 11 of us that are running as Republicans in this race are going to tell you that we're pro-Trump, tell you that we're conservative, and we're going to go fight for you. But only one of us has actually been punched in the nose by his own leadership and been attacked by the PAC money and threatened by the executive branch and all that stuff. And so, it's just a matter of, if you're willing to, if you've experienced already, and are you willing to take more of it and go up there and fight, truly fight on behalf of the folks that you represent. I think it's also important too, if talking about the deficit and talking about the Constitution, I agree with you. Those are first and foremost. The Constitution is what we swear an oath to protect and defend. And those issues are first and foremost on all of our minds. But I do think that some of these candidates are giving political speech and campaign speech by saying, well, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to solve the debt and I'm going to balance the budget. And my first bill is going to solve whatever issue it is that they think is polling well at the time. And they're not being necessarily truthful with you, because what's going to happen to whoever wins this election on December 2nd, on December 3rd or 4th, they're going to fly to DC and they're going to get sworn in, and they're going to walk right into a budget fight over a continuing resolution to see if we're going to raise the debt ceiling and continue operating the budget before we close for Christmas.
Right.
So don't make no mistake. We're not going to go up there and solve all these problems and be world beaters as soon as we hit the ground in DC. We're going to walk into a crap storm.
Yep.
And then after that Christmas break, when we come back and they give us our keys to our office building and we find an apartment to rent, we get a staff put together so that we can do the constituent services that we need to do, will be about time to pull papers and run again in the midterm election. So anybody that's telling you that they're going to do all of these wonderful things if you elect them for the remainder of Congressman Green's term,
Right.
They're just not telling you the truth. What we're going to do is go up there and try to hold on tight and not get killed in the 9 months or 10 months that we're up there. And then we're going to do everything we can to hold on to this seat in the midterm for the Republican Party.
So, and I understand you're right. You're not going to fix it overnight. I got it. And you're going to get there in December. And I mean, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose, because they're going to come out with one of these big omnibus bills, which I'm totally against. But do you have anything in mind of powers that you want to work on returning to the state where they belong? Something that you already know you want to work on.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we're trying to do, those of us that are running for this seat, see a lot of what President Trump has put out in executive orders and trying to get those things codified. So, for instance, the federal Department of Education, I don't think there are very many Republicans left anymore that honestly think that there's any good purpose for the federal Department of Education. Right. It is something that should be returned to the states, and figuring out how we're going to do that and what it looks like is something that Congress needs to take some serious time and effort to do. If that's some sort of funding mechanism where this money is coming back in block grants to the states, that's fine. Let's go ahead and get that done, because President Trump only has 3 years left. We're on a clock. And so whatever it is that we're going to get done, we're going to lose a lot of time with this midterm election.
Yeah. And you don't know how that's going to turn out.
No, you don't. So why wait? Why are we spinning our wheels on this stuff? Why are we taking the month of August off? Let's go ahead and get to work while we have the majority now. Let's get these things in motion and get them done. So, Department of Education, we've got to really continue working on this election integrity stuff.
Yep.
Hand marked paper ballots, all of these things, getting rid of the machines, going back to precinct voting.
He signed an executive order on that today, and granted that needs legislation, and granted it's going to be tied up in court, and I'm not a big fan of executive orders.
But that's where Congress has an opportunity to act.
Absolutely.
He is telling us what his position is on it.
Yep.
Now let's pick up that ball and run with it and make a bill out of it and pass a law.
Absolutely. Should the ATF be eliminated, or at least take the F out of the ATF?
Yeah, I'm all for it. And what another useless three-letter agency in DC.
Absolutely. And now okay, I think I've kind of just talked about this, agencies and programs. You said Department of Education. Anything else? I mean, there's no shortage of three-letter
I mean,
agencies that need to go.
if we want to get wild, let's just get rid of the IRS.
I'm going to say this. I think if we're ever going to fix this country, it's not just a matter of, fixing the IRS or getting rid of the IRS. We got to repeal the 16th some way, somehow. Because as long as the federal government has that money is the root of all the evil. Because if they don't have it to bribe people with, then they don't have any power.
Well, and like we said, we give them $1, they send us 25 cents with all sorts of strings attached to it, and then they try to make fun of us. Well, you're relying on 40% of your budget's coming from the federal government. Well, that's our money, buddy. We send it up there to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
and you're just sending it back to us piecemeal and telling us what we can and can't do with it. And enough's enough.
Right. So, what are your legislative priorities?
I'm going to be honest with you and tell you what most politicians won't tell you. My legislative priority, at least in the next 9 months to a year, will be to get reelected. Again, we've got to hold on to this seat for the Republican Party. The margins are so thin, we can't allow the Democrats to wrestle away this majority that we have from President Trump and leaving him basically impotent for the last 2 years of his term. So a lot of what I'm going to be trying to do is make sure that I'm getting as much done as I can to help get these executive orders codified, so that we're not sitting here 2-3 years from now going, man, we had a real chance to get some stuff done and make some real change. What happened?
Right. Okay. The 7th District includes a lot of soldiers and retirees from Fort Campbell. What are your ideas about what we need to do to improve our military capabilities and the welfare of the troops?
Well, the welfare of the troops is probably the biggest thing, and the troops and the veterans. Our VA system, it does a lot of good, but man, it's so inefficient. I really hope that we can. JD Vance is talking about getting Elon Musk back on board, and hopefully by Christmas time. If that happens, I'd love to get him into the VA and turn him loose, and find a way for us to get that system working better for our veterans. It shouldn't be a complex Rubik's Cube and maze for you to sort through to find out what is out there for you, what kind of assistance that you can get, and then the bureaucratic red tape and everything that you have to go through to get it. My brother used to be a VA service coordinator in South Texas, and I've just heard so many stories of what he had to deal with, but also all of the wonderful things that he was able to do for these men and women who had no idea what was out there for them. So that's the main thing. I think Representative Ogles or Congressman Ogles is announced recently a CBOC in Nashville. Honestly, we need to do something that's a little bit further outside of Nashville. We've got so many veterans that are out here in Stewart and Houston and Humphreys and Dixon County. If you look at the district, I think Dixon County is probably the geographic center of it. And what a great spot to drop a CBOC in. So all of these veterans out here on the west side of Nashville out toward the river don't have to go all the way to Murfreesboro or Vanderbilt Hospital in order to get their VA assistance. That's first thing on top of mind to answer that question.
Okay. I don't know, whether Musk comes back or not. I think if you turned Rand Paul and Massey loose, we could probably cut a lot.
Hey, same thing, just a different version of it. I agree.
All right, it was reported last week the Trump administration, they're in a process of having the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE designated as foreign terrorist organizations. What do you know about these organizations, and are you concerned that we still don't understand the Islamic threat 24 years after 9/11?
Oh, I think we understand it. I just think that our media and the left are playing footsies with these people. We watched Obama and Hillary Clinton dabble around and partner up with these maniacs, and look what happened. aside from the tragedy of Benghazi that never should have happened, but the fire that got lit across all of the Muslim territory across northern Africa and into Middle East. Look, they are terrorist organizations. They have absolute. I believe people when they tell me what they are, and when people say "death to America," I believe them. I believe that's what they intend for us. And so there's no question in my mind that that is their ultimate goal is to kill Western civilization, kill all the infidels. And that's you and me and everybody probably listening to this broadcast. And so let's take them for who they are and take them at their word and treat them accordingly and stop playing footsies with these people.
And of course, CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood, there are, CARE is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and a lot of these different organizations are. But I mean, we just had, 2-3 weeks ago, I'm sorry, well, they haven't proven that one yet. Anyway, I'm thinking back to the situation in Fort Hood. I mean, we've had attacks on American soil, a lot of attacks. Even in Tennessee, we've had attacks since 9/11. So I'm not sure that our law enforcement receives the training, because remember, when Obama was in, he did away with anything that had to do with treating Islam as a threat doctrine. He got rid of all of it in the military and in law enforcement. I'm not sure they actually get it. They may get it on an individual basis, but I don't think it's part of a formal training curriculum for them.
Well, no, absolutely not, because he was spending his entire term in office as president convincing the world that Islam was the beginning of all mathematics, and NASA could have never happened, and we'd never been in space if it wasn't for the Muslims, the whole 9 yards. So he did nothing for his 8 years but try to completely change the way the world sees and views the Muslim Brotherhood and the Nation of Islam in general, right. Which is doing a very big disservice to an entire generation of Americans that don't know any better.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think we've recovered from that. I don't think we have figured out that, hey, we need to get back out there and teach the people. But that's my opinion. There's also in Stewart County, which is in the 7th district, it's known as Muslims of America, MOA. It's also linked to an organization called Jamaat al-Fukra. The leader of it is a guy named Jelani, who's from Pakistan. Now, there's been some very bad links made. Now, the MOA has never been, that I know of, designated a terrorist organization, but there's certainly been people in the organization that have had some links. Matter of fact, this was not brought up in his trial, but in the first World Trade Center bombing in '93, guy's last name was Hampton, Rodney Hampton, I think. He was actually involved with the MOA. That was never brought up in the trial, but he was actually involved with them. This compound's in Stewart County, been there for like 45 years. And
it may surprise you that I've not been invited to come over there and speak to them.
Well, I would be concerned if you had been. Anyway, I just want to, what, if anything, you know about them and their links to foreign entities or terrorist activity?
Well, having been born and raised here in this area, I'm well aware that they are there. As far as their links to terrorist activities, I am not read in on those things. As a state representative for 3 years, dealing with those types of issues at that level have not been anything that's crossed my desk. Right. And so, it's certainly something that I will have to be made aware of and read in on once I get up there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I can help you with that. I can help you with that.
Well, with it being in my backyard, so close to Fort Campbell, is certainly something that we all need to be keeping a very close eye on, for sure.
Absolutely. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts. The choices really for me is very simple in this race. You talked about my record earlier. I am, out of 11 candidates in the Republican Party, I am the most conservative candidate in this race to replace Mark Green. As you said, I'm the only one that has a perfect 100% conservative voting record from two different organizations, two different agencies. I'm the only one that's actually been in the fight. And with all due respect to the military folks and people that have that background, it's a completely different type of warfare in a legislative session than it is in the actual battlefield. And so this is this is mental and psychological, and the money and pressure and everything else that comes along with it. And so I've been taking those slings and arrows from not only from the radical left and those crazy people on that side of things, but from my own party, from the big PAC monies that have been coming after me and running attack ads left and right, from my own government or governor, who clearly wanted this school voucher bill and has been upset with me for standing against it and standing with my people. So you don't have to guess what I'm going to do if you send me to D.C. I've got a record for 3 years. You know that I'm going to be conservative. You know I'm going to vote the right way. I'm going to run the type of bills that you want to see done. And I'm going to listen to you and be available to you to talk to me and let you yell at me whenever I do something that you don't like.
Let me ask a real quick question. AFP, Americans for Prosperity. Have you got any? Have they ran any ads against you?
They're all these organizations are limbs off of the same trunk of the tree.
Right.
They tell you, well, we haven't done anything to you, but it's American Federation for Children, it's Club for Growth. They're all the same Koch brothers funded,
right.
Rotten tree. So yeah, it's all part of the same deal.
I was just going to give you kudos because if AFP is running commercials against you, I mean, that would be a feather in your hat as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, they recruited one of the individuals into this race because they were afraid that I might win, and so they had to get somebody in this race that they had backed last November with $1 million, trying to get him into a state seat. So,
oh wow,
yeah, they're involved heavily.
Okay. Any upcoming events?
Oh, we've got stuff left and right. I will be in Lawrence County tomorrow night for the Reagan Day dinner.
Yep.
We've got another Houston County event coming up for a candidate forum. There's going to be a joint event between Montgomery County and Cheatham County doing a candidate forum as well. What else? Thank you. I've got a live stream coming up with John Rich on Thursday of this week.
Cool.
So that will be at 7 p.m. on X. He and I have been getting together and talking about some of these attacks and things that are coming out against me. And, we're talking about the work that he and I have done together on the TVA issue in Cheatham County and New Johnsonville, also on red flag down and getting rid of these red flag laws that the governor was trying to push down our throats. So it's going to be a good deal. It'll be probably 30 to 45 minutes. We'll be live, and I suspect there'll be quite a few people watching across the country. So it should be a good time.
Absolutely. And September 11th, you will be in Stewart County for the forum there.
Yes, sir.
Looking forward to that. And
Yes, sir.
we don't know yet how many are going to show up, so we'll have to figure out how we adjust the forum, whether we get 5 or whether we get 11 candidates. I'm hoping for closer to 5, but we'll see. Anyway, your website, jodybarrettfortennessee.com. Thanks for being with us, and good luck.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
You too. Have a good one. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary for their financial support for the month of July and August. We really appreciate it. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please subscribe and listen and share with your friends. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and X. Look for Dave's Raves, which are 2-minute audio commentaries on current events. We're making some changes to that, and some will be written and posted on the site. On August 19th, the Lawrence County GOP will have its Reagan Day dinner. The speakers are U.S. Rep. Scott DeJarlais, Representative John Rose, and Senator Marsha Blackburn. There will be a cocktail reception at 4:30, dinner at 6, opening ceremony at 6:15. Individual tickets are $100. To purchase tickets and for location details, contact Lawrence Sutton at 863-614-7500. The Tennessee Firearms Association will have its yearly fundraiser Saturday, September 6th, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Farm Bureau Expo Center, also known as the James E. Ward Agricultural Center, 945 East Batter Parkway, Lebanon, Tennessee. The guest speaker is General Michael Flynn. Representative Rose will be there as well. There will be vendors galore and auctions for weapons, plus lunch. There's been an addition to the lineup that you need to know about. Brett Rogers, author of the book, The Goal is to Win, will be there and will give a special 1-hour training from 9:30 to 10:30 on effective campaigning. I heard him speak just a couple of months ago. His training is the best thing out there, and I've taken it from a few different organizations. So if you're in the grassroots, or if you're running and you're not independently wealthy and you want to run for office, take advantage of this opportunity. It's a great event. Hope to see you there. Tickets are $100, tables are $750, but you're also placed closer to the stage. No promise of tickets if you wait till the day of to go. You can go to the website, tfalac.org, for the event. That's where you can purchase your tickets or your tables. Our guest this Thursday is Thomas J. DiLorenzo. He is president of the Mises Institute. He's a former professor of economics at Loyola University in Maryland and a longtime member of the senior faculty of the Mises Institute. He is the author and co-author of 18 books, including The Real Lincoln, How Capitalism Saved America, Lincoln Unmasked, Hamilton's Curse, Organized Crime, The Unvarnished Truth About Government. Boy, that's a perfect title. The Problem with Socialism, and The Politically Incorrect Guide to Economics. We will talk about his book, The Real Lincoln. Join us for the whole ugly truth about the mythical Honest Abe and the damage he did to the Republic with his stinking Lincoln thinking. Our guest next Monday, the 25th, will be State Rep, now 7th District candidate Gino Bolso. He also has a pretty good legislative record and has impressed many on the trail so far with his knowledge of the Constitution. Hope you'll join us. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.